Support comes from St. Louis Public Library Foundation, helping the library serve children and their families with programs and services needed to become lifelong readers. More information about the foundation is at slpl.org.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. In January, Lúcia Lohmann will become the first woman to be president of the Missouri Botanical Garden. She succeeds Peter Wise Jackson, who has served as president of the garden since 2010. Lohmann grew up in Brazil and first came to St. Louis for her master's and PhD at the University of Missouri St. Louis. She was also a postdoctoral fellow at the garden. Since then, Lohmann has become an internationally recognized botanist and professor at the University of California, Berkeley. St. Louis Public Radio's senior environmental reporter Kate Grumke sat down with Lohmann to learn why she wanted to come back to St. Louis and the garden.
So tell me what first led you to devote your life to studying plants?
Well, I guess it all goes back to my childhood, really. And so I was born and raised in Brazil, and when I think about my early childhood, I have all these wonderful memories of being outside in nature and playing around plants. And I think it all connects to that.
And you got your master's and PhD from the University of Missouri St. Louis. What do you remember most from your time as a student here?
I have so many wonderful memories. And, well, first of all, it's amazing. So as a student from Brazil, I wanted to come study in St. Louis, and that was the only place I wanted to go. So that's the only university I applied for. And I have this wonderful memory of this truly international program. So I met students from all over the world, and we got classes in biology, but also social sciences. So it was really a program ahead of its time, and we were learning about multidisciplinary research 20 years ago. And we were also doing incredibly diverse research with people from all over the world, even before the acronym Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion existed.
And what had you heard about St. Louis that made you want to come here?
So the Missouri Botanical Garden houses the largest collections of the plant family Bignoniaceae, which is the trumpet creeper family. And this is a group that I am a specialist on. So I came here because of the Missouri Botanical Garden and its collections, and also the incredible graduate program.
I read that you lived just a few hundred feet from the Missouri Botanical Garden when you were here. What impression did it make on you back then?
It was lovely. And it was really wonderful because I was so close to the garden, so I could just walk to my office, and I used to stay really late doing my graduate work, and I could walk back home. And when I first came here, the herbarium was still in the Lohmann building. So I have these memories of crossing the garden late at night and going back to my apartment. And it was really wonderful that the garden provided such incredible structure for students. I lived in an apartment that was owned by the garden, and it was so welcoming, and I just loved it.
St. Louis has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Why did you want to come back to this city?
First of all, St. Louis really feels like home, and it really is my second home. So I spent my 20s here, and I always try to come back to St. Louis. I absolutely love the St. Louis community, and I have so many friends in St. Louis. And above all, the Missouri Botanical Garden really is a major center for research and conservation recognized throughout the world. So the opportunity to come back and help lead the Missouri Botanical Garden into another chapter is incredibly exciting.
Many St. Louisans don't realize how key this city is in plant science, and the Missouri Botanical Garden is a big part of that. How do you think the garden could further strengthen St. Louis's influence in botany?
So the Missouri Botanical Garden really is this amazing world-class institution in botany, is one of the largest botanical gardens in the world. So imagine, as a 17-year-old back in Brazil, I knew about the Missouri Botanical Garden, and this is where I wanted to come. So in some ways, the Missouri Botanical Garden might even be better known globally than it is locally. And I mean, so the garden is, for the local community, this amazing place where people come to celebrate, where they come to learn about plants, where they come to enjoy themselves. And it's important to keep in mind that the amazing displays and everything they're learning about plants is based on truly solid science. And so this connection between science and the garden itself and the horticultural displays is really crucial.
How will climate change affect the work of the garden in the coming years as you take over the presidency?
Climate change and biodiversity loss really are some of the greatest challenges of our times, right? So we really need to be sure to be prepared for the future. So while I start to think about the next steps and our actions, I'm really thinking about what is the science that we need to do now that will help us really mitigate some of the challenges 30 years from now.
And what type of work will that be, do you think?
So, well, we need to keep in mind the garden means different things for different people, and also in terms of research. So the breadth of research that is conducted at the garden, and also not only at the garden locally, but we also have scientists from all over the world who use the garden's databases and libraries to conduct additional research. And we really need research that starts with the basics, so documenting biodiversity, that go all the way into finding solutions. So we need to understand the history of plants, to understand how did plants form over the last several million years, how did they adapt to climate change in the past, so we can use this information to be better prepared for the future. And at the same time, of course, we want to save the endangered and threatened species and make sure they're growing in our displays so we can have these species for the future.
You will be the first woman president of the Missouri Botanical Garden. How do you plan to bring your identity to this work? I think there are some women have some qualities sometimes in terms of community building, and I am a truly collaborative person by nature, and of course, my own qualities will be reflected on my day-to-day work. I also grew up in a family with very strong women, so in some ways my family was a little bit ahead of its time. My great-grandfather had 9 daughters, and so my grandmother and all her 8 sisters, they all went to university and they all developed careers. And so I grew up in this setting, and I never thought that anything could be any different. What mark do you hope to make here?
Wow. So many things to think about. And well, first of all, we need to think that we sit on a 165-year legacy. And so first of all, it's a huge responsibility to take on this role. But of course, I'm not alone, and I'm working with incredibly accomplished staff and the community of St. Louis. And so I have many ideas for the future, and of course, we really need to think about
how the garden can continue to be this amazing place that bridges people with plants. So in other words, to continue to build meaningful connections between plants and people while also building on our science and doing really cutting-edge science that will provide us the information that we need to solve the challenges ahead. So in some ways, lots of species are going extinct on a daily basis, and we don't have time to waste. There are urgent things that we really need to do now, and that will be crucial moving forward.
What are you most looking forward to about this new role?
Well, I'm really looking forward, first of all, to returning to St. Louis and reconnecting with the community of St. Louis, reconnecting with the city that I love. I also am really looking forward to walking around the garden, and I am especially looking forward to thinking about how can we advance the mission of the garden while really contributing to solving the climatic and environmental crisis that we have ahead. Very few institutions in the world have the ability that the garden has to contribute to mitigating those challenges. And we have an enormous social and environmental responsibility. So contributing in the best way I can.
That's Lúcia Lohmann, who will become president of the Missouri Botanical Garden on January 1st. Lohmann is an internationally recognized botanist who earned her master's and PhD at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. She was also a postdoctoral fellow at the Missouri Botanical Garden. She spoke with STLPR senior environmental reporter Kate Grumke.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.